Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Compassionate Climb. I am Julia Napini. I am here with Colleen Kendrick, and we are thrilled to talk to you today about some experience with business. And I'd love if you could introduce yourself, Colleen, to the listeners so we can learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I am a busy lady, like I know you are. Got a lot of stuff going on. So I am the owner of a marketing communications consulting agency. I'm also a university professor. I teach marketing at the College of Business here. And a maybe chronic perpetual volunteer because, in all the free time, I've got to fill it with other stuff that somebody needs me to do.
Full plate, to say the least. So tell me a little bit about your climb. How did you get to this point in your career? Is this the vision that you had for yourself?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question because no, not at all. And it's funny, teaching university students, this comes up a lot because it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And some people are very clear on that vision. Other people are, getting ready to graduate and like, I'm not ready yet, I don't know. And so I feel like I can kind of appreciate the span of that. When I first went to college, I thought I wanted to be a journalist. I've always loved writing. Writing has been a passion of mine. I'm very comfortable expressing myself that way. And actually started my undergrad for journalism and thought that was going to be my thing. I quickly realized that I was a little bit too extroverted to be a journalism that focused on writing. A journalist that focused on writing, and I knew I wasn't going to do the camera ready stuff, on the news. So I was like, how do I leverage these skills for something that is a little more dynamic and changing a little more, giving me a little more excitement? And so I pivoted into marketing, which was such a good choice for me. And I've been in it for over 20 years now since, which is crazy to think about. But, my vision was always just to, like, I still say it today, do good work with good people. I just want, I'm very driven by altruism. I like doing things that better conditions and environments for people. And so that has not changed. That goal of always doing the things that are working towards making something better has always been my goal. But looking back on the breadcrumbs of my career, how I got to where I am now, no, I didn't see most of this coming. I've lived on both coasts. I've been in nonprofit industries and healthcare environments and a university now. And so it's funny, you sit in this place now, and I think a lot of us do this as we reflect, hey, this is a good place and this feels like this was supposed to happen, but man, how did I get here? And it all sort of makes sense in hindsight, like many things. But definitely not the vision I had. I think it was always just keep fighting to do good work with good people. And if it felt good and it felt like you were going to learn or it was a new opportunity, then it was worth giving a shot. Right.
Okay. Can relate to a lot of that. So your experience with nonprofit and healthcare and then being a business owner and entrepreneur now, how did those experiences shape how you are as a business owner and manager of a team?
Yeah. So, I think working in the healthcare space primarily just reminds you of the severity of your circumstance. So I have, everyone has rough days, but all my days are good days, right? Because they're days that I get to keep having and keep doing work that I love and spending time with people that I care about. So spending a lot of time in my healthcare career at one point, I was doing things like building a cancer program. And I'll tell you, if you ever really need to kind of sit with yourself and go, how are things going? Running an oncology program really, really is very revealing. And so people say to, somebody passed me in the hallway the other day on campus and said, how's it going? I'm like, it's great. Everything's great. And they're like, you're always great. And I'm like, you know what? I am always great. Things are good, because they could be much, much worse. And so I think coming from that, I worked for the Cancer Society for years. So coming from understanding what worse looks like and what challenge can be and true difficulty, I got it pretty good. And I'm really grateful for that. And I really think that, people will say to me a lot as I talk to them, like, I appreciate the energy you bring. And I think that comes across that I feel excited about the partners I'm working with and the work that I'm doing because we're doing good work together. And because I know what it's like to be in situations that are much, much worse than the ones that I'm in.
What an incredible perspective. But not only the perspective, it's maintaining that in some really trying times, I'm sure. Because I don't know about your climb or your business journey, but it hasn't always been smooth sailing. How do you maintain that in those moments when it gets really difficult? It sounds like you're clear on your vision. You've stayed true to that kind of humanitarian nature of really helping other people. But in the times when it's the hardest, how do you maintain that?
Yeah, and I'd like to tell you that I'm really good at self-care or disconnecting or something like that, but that's not the truth. I I think for me it's really about thinking about in the moment, what am I capable of right now? And so, there's a lot of variability in my work itself, working with clients, working with students, that, there are a lot of things that I'm responding to that are based on feedback or questions from someone else. And so I feel very much like I have an audience a lot of times in many ways as I'm kind of, performing in teaching class or in going over client visions and things like that. And so I think for me in those like kind of quiet moments where I'm like, hey, this is a tough spot right now, a lot of times I find that I'm trying to force myself to do something that doesn't fit the condition that I'm in, right? Like you can't make yourself be wildly creative if you don't feel wildly creative that day. Like you just cannot force that, right? And so some days that means that I catch up on emails and I take an online course and I do my invoices because like I'm not in the headspace to be creative or to be, on stage today or to have an audience or to kind of be doing any sort of outreach. And I have to just like live in that. And so I think a lot of times when I'm like, man, I'm frustrated or things are feeling rough right now, it's because I'm trying to force something that is not the place that I'm at. And so if I can level set, if I can go, okay, there's not a deadline for this tomorrow morning, then I just absolutely redirect myself and go, okay, this is not going to be the day where this gets done. I call them tomorrow jobs. I'll say that to my team. This is a tomorrow job.
Sure.
Like my head's just not there today. But then there are days where I feel so creative, I literally can't turn my brain off at night. And I'm sure you've been in those spaces too, where you're like, I really just wish I could work 4 more hours because I'm full of ideas. And so I think you just gotta give yourself a little grace, to know that like every day you're not the same and every day you're not going to respond to those situations the same way.
That's great advice. So it sounds like you really know when you're in your zone of genius. And I like how you reframe that in those moments where you're trying something or you have a deadline and it's just not working. That is okay. So it sounds like you've done some work on just accepting that. And it's okay. It will ultimately get done. And then you really capitalize on the times when when you're in flow. And look, that is not a perfect process. There were plenty of years early in my career where I didn't have that kind of insight, I guess, into myself and my process, and I probably forced it, and I probably didn't do the best quality work because I wasn't really on that day. And so I think, the longer you work in spaces like this and the more you kind of get to know yourself, the more you can go, okay, I kind of can figure out what zone I'm in today. So can you think of one challenge that you have experienced throughout this journey that you've come out on the other side, you're clearer, it was a learning experience that you feel others could benefit from hearing?
Yeah, sure. I think the most difficult thing for me as a business owner has been scaling. And I think that's such a common thing. So people that are listening are probably like, yep, totally get it. I think, and not in the figuring it out of like where to put people or what kind of people I need or expertise, in being willing to be somebody who has always been so in control and maybe a little type A, of protecting my work ethic and my brand and all of the things that people expect from me, and being able to then say that I'm having confidence in these people, that they're upholding those, like, those same values, those same, and it doesn't necessarily mean anyone needs to work, the way I work or the hours I work or any of those things, right? I mean, everyone's kind of got their own flow, as you said, but I think being able to really surround yourself with a trusted team is so important. And I know as I talk to people who have built businesses, so many times I'll say, like, what's your secret sauce? And they're like, my team is amazing. And it's so true. But getting over that for like those first two hires of being like, okay, I'm first of all committing to the fact that I'm going to give you a paycheck that is really important and like necessary. And now I own that. And so that's a weight, right? That you haven't had before. And then also being like, you're going to maybe do it a little different than I do because you're not me.
Right.
And it's still going to be good and it's still going to get done. And maybe you'll have suggestions on how to do it better that I didn't see when I was kind of head down in my own zone. So I think scaling is the hardest. I think, finding the right team members that feel good, letting that brand grow under something that's beyond you is very difficult. But man, when you do it, like every time I add someone to my team and I'm like, how did I not know that this is exactly what, and it happens every time. I'm like, this is exactly what we needed. And it's like, I know I'll get there. Right. But that tension, right. That little bit of tension and anxiety in the process of getting there. I don't know that it ever really goes away. Every time you promise somebody, right, that you're going to support them as somebody that works on your team.
Sure. So it's finding the right people for the seats. And then once they're there, trusting them that they are going to get to that finish line. And it may be a different process at a different pace. How do you manage in the interim when maybe they're new and they're getting acclimated to allow them to do it in their way?
Yeah. So it's funny. I feel like I've worked in my career before I was an entrepreneur for, micromanagers and as well as people who kind of let me just to kind of take that project and run with just kind of limited oversight. And it's hard to figure out who you are when you start building a team. Like, I am absolutely not a micromanager, and anybody who has worked with or for me on any projects, I think would agree with that. I think what it took some time for me to learn is the opposite of that. So I'm so committed to finding the right person, trusting in their abilities, and saying, you're going to do what you do best, and I'm going to offer you every support. I'm going to offer you some guidance, and then you make it happen, right? And a lot of times people make it happen better than you even envisioned it, right? Because they're the experts in those areas. And so I find that that's actually really helpful. What has been difficult for me in being kind of so far down the slide there from being a micromanager is that I had to really learn when I was onboarding people that they needed more from me. Not just like, hey, welcome to the team. Here's all your good stuff. Here are some projects to consider this week and some things I'm going to plop on your calendar. And, really doing a better job, even if they have years of experience, of kind of hand holding them a little bit, that kind of like walk before you run, like, let's just get you trained up in this new environment, in this new organization. Get you connected to the other people that'll offer you supports and advice beyond me. And so I always feel like that has been a little uncomfortable for me because I feel like I don't want to be overbearing, but I've also learned that, and so, again, some employees come in with a more need for like, hey, can you just kind of coach me through these first couple of weeks than others who feel like they've got a little more ability to kind of dive in and do some things independently. And so it's really just trying to feel kind of that person out and what their needs are, and make sure you give as much as you can without feeling like you're overbearing or micromanaging until it's time to back off,
Okay. So it sounds like trying to find that sweet spot. So it's having the team there, letting them know that they have the support if they need it. It's giving them a little bit of room to navigate it and figure it out, and letting them know that that's okay.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's always been a priority in kind of the culture of my organization and with my employees, with contractors, with anybody that works with us, is that, this is, it's good. We're doing good work with good people, but it's just part of your life, right? So, if I'm saying to you like, hey, here are some things to get done today or this week, as long as they get done today or this week, I don't really care if you're doing them logged on side by side with me at 3 p.m. if that's not necessary. And so I think part of it is, and I hope, and I think that people appreciate that. Like, hey, I'm going to do the things I need to do. I'm also going to pay attention to my life. And so it's very common to be like, hey, turning my camera off, going out to pick it up from the bus. Like that's a very common part of life. We had a call that ran over today, and like 2 of the 3 of us by the end were like, oh my gosh, gotta go, kids, and that's just like Like that's the thing, right? And so this is the work, and it supports all of those other good things we get to do. And it gets done, right? But it gets done, and it's always been that way for us. I feel like a lot more organizations are maybe seeing that now post pandemic. We're seeing a little bit more flexibility and ease on the when it gets done if you don't physically need to be together. So I'm psyched about that, but I think that's always been really important to us. And part of that is because I'm a mom running a business, right? I have kids and a husband and a family and 100 jobs and volunteer stuff to do. Like it's just like you got to do the things that are important when they're important.
For sure. So you've used the phrase good work with good people. Yeah. Tell me more about that, because our theme is integrity and what that means. So tell me more about what that means to you and what that phrase means to you.
Sure. That means that if anyone approaches us and says, hey, we're interested in talking to you about your services to help, those are my filters. My immediate filters is tell me what kind of work you're doing. And so much of the work we do is in mission-based organizations or in community coalitions, people that are working towards aims that are really good and honorable and for the benefit of people. And so that's the work we want to do. I'm not out there trying to, sell more things as an influencer online or to convince people to, buy stuff they don't want to buy. I really want to convince people to engage in things that are meaningful to them, whether that's education or access to care opportunities, whatever that might be. And so the very first filter is, are you doing good work? Because I need to believe in it. And I think our team gets way more excited about it if they believe in it too. Like, hey guys, look, we have an opportunity to make a difference. So that's number one. If we don't feel good about the work, then we're just not a fit. And that doesn't, people will be like, well, what does it mean if it's not a fit? Or it doesn't mean that we don't know how to help you. It means that you're not aligned with the type of work we're doing or kind of the values that we're basing the choices of where we spend our time on. And, so in doing good work, you meet a lot of good people. And so when we say we want to do good work with good people, we want the people that are operating in those businesses to have the type of integrity that we're bringing to projects. And so when we're meeting with executives or donors or volunteers in these different organizations we're working with, you want that to come through. You want to feel that altruism, that kind of mission-based drive from them. And you want to get to a point, I don't have a single client right now that I couldn't literally pick up my cell phone right now and call and ask a question, who wouldn't answer or text me back and say, give me 5 minutes. And so doing good work is important. Doing good work with good people is fun. And I think that's really the difference for us is, I have clients, we've got I'm sitting here right outside of Philadelphia. When we talk about, rivalries and sports and things there's all sorts of stuff going on where you get to not only be people that are working together on a project, but people that enjoy working together and getting to know each other. And so, so the good people part is good. I want to be excited that I'm talking to you about the stuff we're working on.
That was a great description. So I was going to ask how you stay true to who you are, because there's a lot of themes that I'm noticing in how you're answering each of these questions. And it seems like you are among your people. Do you have any strategies in terms of, so you talked a little bit about when you're considering taking on a new client or customer, and then a little bit about when you're adding people to the team. What do you use as your filters beyond them being really passionate and doing meaningful work?
For sure. I think getting a sense of shared values, I think, is very important.
Yes.
Getting to a place where I feel like we could be honest with each other. Like my team members will call me and be like, hey, just listen to that thing you did. So it's not great. Like, okay, great. But that's what they're there for, right? Like we want to be able to do that. So I want to feel like I have people that are coming, to this with shared values, people that are going to be really transparent in making the work and all of us doing the work better. This is not a place where we tiptoe and give smiles and then hang up and say what we really think about stuff. We talk about it. And so I think that's one thing for me is I want you to really be authentically who you are and bring the thoughts that you have. And some of them are right, some of them are wrong, some of them don't work now, or they might work next year. I don't know, but I want you to bring it. I think that's one thing. But yeah, whenever I'm thinking about engagement, I think the thing that helps me stay in that zone surrounded by the type of people that I'm talking about here, is knowing that you're not going to be for everyone. And early in our careers, especially when we're still kind of figuring out like our own self concept, right? Like, who am I? Who am I trying to be? What's important to me? It's harder to do that. It's harder to do that as a new entrepreneur where you're trying to make some money and pay your bills, and maybe you can't be as selective about the type of clients because you've got to just get some work in the door. And so I understand the grind of that on
Sure.
that piece of the climb. And I don't discount that at all because we've all been there. But I do think when you're in a place where you're able to be selective, you can really kind of protect your peace and protect that focus by thinking about what those filters are and saying, your business sounds great, or you seem really nice, but it's not really a match for us. And so I have definitely referred new clients, even potential employees, to other people to say, hey, I think there's something here. It's not really a fit for us, but I think maybe you'd be great at it, or maybe this person actually would help your team. And so I think it's good to think about what, it's not always a hard yes or no, but maybe there's a different utilization here. But you have to be able to say no, and that's hard. It's especially when someone is calling you saying, I want to give you money to help, do business. And you're like, no, that doesn't feel like a fit. That's a funny conversation to have. And so, as an entrepreneur, I think you get very comfortable with having to be uncomfortable from time to time. And it took me a long time. And I read The Power of No, I think 3 times before like it really got through to me at different periods of my life. I think it really struck me once I was a mom with 2 kids, and I was like,
Yes.
okay, this is making some sense. But I think when you look at that, you're like, you're saying yes to things, you're saying no to things. Is it the things that you want to be involved in? And so one of my core filters has been, if I do this thing that I'm not certain about, or I'm feeling like maybe I'm not sure, you got that kind of feeling in the pit of your stomach, like, is this client the right fit for me? Or is this project one that we want to spend our time on? That's the question I ask myself. If I'm saying no, is it no to me, like, no, just go ahead and move on with it and power through? Or is it no to them? Because it's always no to someone, right? And so that's the thing. And so I am very, very conscious and very mindful of how I curate the types of work that we do. And I'm blessed to be in a situation in my career where I have the ability to do that. But a lot of my entrepreneur friends who are really struggling through that, frustrated with a client, or there's demands that I can't meet. There's something at the core of that, right, that's probably not in alignment. And so I try to get ahead of that as much as I can.
There was so much there to unpack. I guess what I would say in summation, it sounds like integrity to you would be honesty, people being able to show up as their true self, and making sure that the choices that you're making in your position and they're making in theirs are really in alignment. It sounds like you've gotten really clear on what works for you and what doesn't, and accepting the fact that if it doesn't, it is okay. What's that quote? Like, you could be the juiciest peach and people still don't like peaches. But it's like that in your personal life, right? Like, you're not friends with everybody you meet, and that's okay. And you're not going to work with every business that potentially comes to you as a partner, and that's also okay. But yeah, that was a long lesson. That is not something that I learned, as a newbie out of, 2 years out of college. Sure.
That's a time earned lesson there. But yeah, I think you're right. I think for me, integrity is like, who are you? Be true to who you are. Be true to what you say you can accomplish and what you're going to bring to the team, and the values that you're going to hold here. And then let's work in that, and that's for people that work, on my team with me and for clients, or it starts to throw things out of balance. And then that's a whole different level of trying to fix something that maybe is not quite in alignment.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot there that you can stand behind, and it also sounds like something that can promote longevity. So if these are the filters that you use, it's going to enable you to do this, because it sounds like you're very good at kind of listening to that gut instinct. And does this feel, like you said, in alignment or not? And if not, it's okay. And I'm sure that you probably encourage that with your team members, and there's a ripple effect to that.
for sure. And I haven't done it perfect. There have been clients I've taken on where I was like, oh, I don't know. Somebody told me they know this person and that's how they got referred to me. And so maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe it's a better fit than I'm seeing right now. And then, that feeling is very telling. You typically learn those lessons. And if you learn those lessons a few times, you get pretty clear on what those filters are. But yeah, I mean, integrity is really, really important.
Yes, I can hear that and I can feel that. You say it with conviction. So if you were to have one key takeaway for those listening today, what is something that you want them to continue to be thinking about after they stop listening and take with them into their own lives, whatever it is that they do?
Oh, that's a great question. I think, and I said, like, I'm not good at self-care. And a lot of people will say, like, make sure you make time for yourself. Make sure you get that perfect 8 hours of sleep. I am not that girl. I am the girl that will follow that flow of creativity till 2 a.m. But I think what has worked for me, and I think for other people that can relate to what I'm sharing there, in trying to keep all that together, is that even if self-care is just taking your temperature for a minute, like checking in with yourself and going, why am I cranky today? Because I'm forcing myself to work on a project I don't want to work on. Or why am I spending 3 hours doing something that takes me typically an hour? It's because, like, I'm not in the zone here. I think for me, that's the biggest piece of self-care. And that, in my personal life and my business is, if you're feeling kind of, icky or grimy or frustrated, like for me, it typically comes out in frustration. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm overwhelmed or whatever. Like maybe self-care is just that moment of stopping to go, what is happening right now? And is there, instead of me forcing myself through this, is there a better situation? And so when you feel like that next time, think about that. Like just take a minute and kind of, I always say, take the temperature of the situation and where you're at and see if maybe just like a minor redirection or a shift of that thing to tomorrow's to-do list as a tomorrow job, like I said, sometimes it makes all the difference.
Yes, I think that's an incredible final thought and takeaway. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for the work that you do. Yeah. So if people want to learn more, work with you, know what you're up to, what is the best way for them to do that?
Oh, I would love that. So my consulting company, where we do all of this good work with good people, it can be found at kendrickcompany.com. If you want to see what I'm up to at the university, you can find me on Rowan University's website and learn about kind of the things I'm focusing on and researching and fun stuff over there. And certainly you could also go back and listen to a great episode of my podcast called The Mom Shuffle that I convinced Julia to guest on. I think it was episode 31 of this second season, if I'm not mistaken. So go check that out and listen in there too, where we get to talk to some business owners about this stuff and their children and some other things. And so thanks so much for having me today, Julia. This was really fun.
I appreciate it. Thank you.